Now listen carefully, because I'm not going to ease into this one. She looked me dead in the eye, in front of her entire family, and said, "Now that's a man. Not what I have at home." And all I could smell was red wine, rosemary potatoes, and the last breath of my dignity burning out like a match. I wish I had stood up and left. I wish I had slammed my glass down and walked out the door like a man in a movie. But I didn't. I sat there, still, small, numb, until the words fell out of me like they'd been hiding in my bones for months. "I'd also like to see your sister in my house instead of you." Boom. Silence. You know that kind of silence where even your own heartbeat feels too loud? That's what followed. Her mother blinked like she'd swallowed a pin. Her brother dropped his fork. And her sister, God help me, smirked. Let me be clear. I wasn't trying to flirt. I wasn't trying to be clever. I was bleeding in public. That line? That was me clawing for one last shred of self-respect. One final jab before the lights went out on whatever this marriage was pretending to be. You don't just say something like that and go back to mashed potatoes. No, what happened next started a chain reaction. Phone calls, accusations, secrets, things I wish I never heard, and things she never thought I'd find. And all of it began with one dinner, one insult, one woman who forgot that her husband was still sitting at the table. The car ride home was silent, except for her passive-aggressive sighs and the occasional, "I can't believe you said that." I didn't respond. I didn't even look at her. I just stared ahead, knuckles tight on the steering wheel, pretending I wasn't 1 second away from either screaming or crying. Maybe both. She didn't apologize. Not once. Not for the humiliation. Not for the insult. Her only concern was how she looked in front of her family. "Do you even know what you've done?" she snapped when we pulled into the driveway. "My mother thinks you're mentally unstable." My voice cracked when I said, "Maybe I am, but at least I didn't compare my spouse to a coworker over casserole." She slammed the car door and went inside. I stayed behind, in the dark, staring at the porch light like it could explain to me how we got here. The next few days were a cold war. No talking, no eye contact, just footsteps crossing in the hallway like two ghosts trapped in the same house. And then, out of nowhere, I got a text from her sister. "Brooke, just one line. I heard what you said. I didn't hate it. I didn't know how to respond. I didn't know if it was a joke, a trap, or just her trying to stir the pot." But then she followed up, "You've been invisible for too long. She forgot you're a person." And I swear to God, I almost cried. Someone finally saw it. Me. We started texting. Nothing flirtatious. Not yet. Just honest. About the tension, the loneliness, the ache of sleeping next to someone who treats you like a background object. Lorna didn't notice a thing. Too busy staying late at work. Too busy laughing at her phone. Too busy keeping her screen tilted away from me like I was the TSA. But I noticed everything. The lipstick stains that weren't hers on her coffee mug. The extra-long showers at night. The fake smiles that didn't reach her eyes. She wasn't mine anymore. She just hadn't said it out loud. But Brooke? She saw more in me in 3 days than Lorna had in 3 years. And that scared me. Not because I was falling, but because, deep down, I didn't hate it. It was a Tuesday when I opened her laptop. Not because I wanted to spy. Honestly, I wanted to believe nothing was there. That I was just paranoid. That my bruised ego was making up stories to justify the silence between us. But the universe doesn't reward loyalty with peace. The laptop was still logged into her cloud. She had forgotten to sign out from the last meeting. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. Maybe I was that harmless in her eyes. A shadow she didn't even bother to close the blinds for. I clicked on the photos first. There were pictures from her office. Random selfies. Mirror shots from the ladies' restroom. And then, one from behind her desk. A man's hand on her shoulder. The caption underneath, "Power lunch. Guess who's in charge?" The comments were flooded with heart emojis. From her coworkers. From someone saved as G. From someone who, in hindsight, was never just her boss. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen like it was a foreign language. My stomach turned so hard I thought I was going to be sick. I had been living in the same house as this woman, folding her laundry, fixing her tires, covering her half of the electric bill last month. And she was out here playing corporate fantasy with someone who treated her like a trophy. I closed the laptop and walked out into the backyard. It was cold. I didn't bring a jacket. I wanted the wind to hurt. I wanted to feel something real. That night, Brooke texted me again. She asked if I was okay. I told her I wasn't. I told her everything, in a way I'd never told anyone. About the photos, the caption, the ache. And she replied with something I wasn't prepared for. She doesn't deserve your loyalty, but maybe she needs to see what happens when she loses it. I didn't reply, but the seed was planted. And the man who always stayed quiet, he was finally thinking about making noise. She started hiding everything in plain sight. That's the part that kills me now. The phone? Always face down on the table, even during dinner. Her laptop? Suddenly password locked. Her calendar? Blocked off with vague titles like strategy meeting and client follow-up. But it wasn't just the devices. It was the way she smiled when she thought I wasn't looking. The kind of smile you don't wear for your husband. Not after a year of cold shoulders and two-word conversations. One night she came home late, said she had a networking dinner. Walked in with perfect lipstick, not a smudge out of place. Hair flawless, heels clicking against the tile like applause for herself. I asked her casually who she went with. She blinked twice, then shrugged. Just co-workers. I asked, was your boss there? She hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, then nodded. Yeah, of course. Then she walked away, leaving the scent of perfume I didn't recognize and a truth I didn't want to confirm. I sat there for a long time that night. No TV, no music, just the sound of the fridge humming and my heart cracking in slow motion. And then, I did something I swore I wouldn't do. I messaged Brooke. I told her everything. The photo, the lies, the silence. She responded immediately. Eliot, you don't have to keep bleeding in private. She invited me out. Nothing weird, she said. Just coffee, just fresh air. Felt wrong, like I was crossing some invisible line. But honestly, it felt less wrong than what Lorna had been doing for months. Pretending to be my wife while treating me like a burden. So I went. And what happened at that cafe? Let's just say I learned something else Lorna had been hiding. Something her own sister couldn't keep to herself anymore. The coffee shop wasn't even halfway full. Rain tapped at the windows. The kind of weather that made it feel like the world was daring you to say something honest. Brooke sat across from me. No makeup, hoodie up, sipping a tea she barely touched. She didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She just stared at me like she already knew something I didn't. I didn't bring you here to gossip, she said, almost apologetically. I brought you here because I think you deserve to know what she's been saying. I braced myself. I was expecting confirmation about the affair, about the boss, about late-night messages and hotel rooms. But that wasn't where she started. She tells people you're emotionally unstable, Brooke said. She says you have outbursts, that you twist things in your head, that you're paranoid and manipulative. It hit me like a slap, not just because it wasn't true, but because it sounded like something she wanted to be true. Like she was rewriting the history of our marriage just to make herself the victim. She said the only reason she hasn't left yet is because she feels guilty, Brooke added. Not because she loves you, not because she wants to fix anything, just guilt. I didn't realize I was shaking until my hands knocked into the ceramic cup and rattled it on the saucer. I looked away, trying to breathe, trying not to cry in front of the one person I shouldn't be emotionally unraveling with. Brooke reached out and gently touched my wrist. Eliot, she's not who she used to be, and I think you've known that for a long time. I nodded, swallowing hard. I think I just didn't want to admit it, but she wasn't done. She leaned in, glanced around the cafe, then said something I'll never forget. She's not just seeing her boss. There's someone else. A third guy. His name is in her group chats. I saw it when she was over last week. She didn't notice I was behind her. The world slowed down. A third? I felt my spine tighten. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. She told her friends she's playing the field before making her next move. That's the phrase she used. Like you're some kind of fallback plan. I couldn't speak, couldn't think. I was sitting across from the only person telling me the truth, and it wasn't even my wife. I left the cafe in a fog. Brooke didn't follow. She just texted me one word afterward. Sorry. But she didn't need to be sorry. Because after that day, I knew exactly who I was dealing with. And I also knew I couldn't keep pretending. That night I didn't sleep. I didn't cry either. I just laid there in the dark, facing away from her, listening to the soft taps on her screen. Texts at 1:42 a.m. that she claimed were group chats. Notifications she always swiped away faster than I could glance at them. She had no idea I knew. And maybe that was the most powerful feeling I'd had in months. Knowing something she didn't know I knew. I didn't confront her. Not right away. Confrontation is what she'd expect. A messy scene. A burst of emotion. And then she'd twist it into more proof of me being unstable. No, I needed to be smarter than that now. So instead, I observed. I paid attention. The next morning, she got up early. Perfume, heels, extra eyeliner. Team meeting, she mumbled, not making eye contact. I smiled and said, hope it goes well. She looked confused by my tone. Suspicious, even. But she left. And I stayed. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. Not immediately. I waited 10 minutes, then took the back exit. Drove slow. Parked a block away from where she said the meeting would be. But she wasn't at her office. Her car was parked 2 buildings down, in front of a small boutique hotel. I watched her walk in, alone. No laptop bag, no files, no work clothes. I sat there for 30 minutes, heartbeat hammering the dashboard. And then I saw him, a tall guy in a navy coat. Not her boss, not the man from the photos, someone else. The third one, just like Brooke said. He walked in casually, didn't even glance around. Like this wasn't the first time. It felt like watching someone close a book on your life and start reading a different one in front of you. But I didn't move. I didn't confront. I didn't scream. I just took a photo from the dashboard. Just one. Not for revenge. Not to threaten her. Just to remind myself that I wasn't crazy. That all the doubt, all the second-guessing, all the nights I thought I was paranoid, they weren't weakness. They were survival instincts. And they'd been right all along. She came home that evening with takeout. She acted casual. Smiled a little too wide. Said she missed me. I asked her how the meeting went. She said, productive. Long. And I nodded. Looked her in the eye and replied, I bet it was. She froze for just a second. And I knew she felt it. The shift. The storm she couldn't see yet. But that was already forming in the distance. I didn't bring it up the next day, or the day after that. I let her routine continue. The fake texts, the early meetings, the guiltless kisses on the cheek as she left the house like she wasn't sleeping with 2 other men. I played my role better than she played hers. And quietly, I started making moves. The first thing I did was open a separate bank account. I didn't transfer everything, not yet. Just enough to feel like I had oxygen again. Then I made copies of every important document in the house. Marriage license, mortgage, car title, even the warranty for the washing machine. I didn't know what I might need later, but I knew I didn't want to be caught with nothing. Next came the apartment. A quiet 1-bedroom on the other side of town. Short-term lease. Paid in cash for the first month. I told the landlord it was for temporary work relocation. He didn't care. He just handed me the keys. At night, while she snored beside me with her phone under her pillow, I laid awake rehearsing what I would say, how I would end it, whether I'd show her the photo, whether I'd say her sister was the one who told me, whether I'd even look her in the eyes when I walked out. But the truth is, I didn't want revenge anymore. I didn't even want answers. I just wanted silence. Space. Somewhere I could drink a cup of coffee without wondering who else had kissed her that week. One evening, while she was at yoga, I changed the locks on the storage unit. The one with all my personal boxes, my old journals, my mom's photos, the dusty guitar I never had time for. I didn't want her near any of it. Not anymore. Then I booked a one-way flight. I wasn't leaving the country, just the city. Just enough to disappear for a while. Enough to hit reset. Still, I hadn't told her. I hadn't said a word. Because I realized something. The woman I married was already gone. She left long before the affair. Long before the lies. She vanished the moment I became invisible to her. So I decided I'd vanish too on my terms. Not in an explosion. In silence. And when I left, she wouldn't even see it coming. The day I left, she was still in bed. Face buried in the pillow. Wrapped in the same sheets she used to wrap around me. I watched her sleep for a few seconds longer than I should have. Not because I felt love, that part had long since dried up, but because part of me wanted to remember what peace used to look like, even if it wasn't real anymore. I didn't leave a dramatic note. I didn't pack everything. Just what mattered. My documents, my clothes, my laptop, and the old photo of my parents she never even noticed was missing from the hallway. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen counter beside her favorite mug. She'd notice it eventually, when she was done pretending I wasn't there. The apartment was cold, small, and completely mine. I sat on the floor that first night, surrounded by unopened boxes, eating cheap takeout on a towel because I hadn't bought plates yet. And still, I smiled. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel useless. I felt free. A week later, Brooke texted me again. She asked if I was okay. I told her the truth. Not yet, but better. She didn't press, just said she was proud of me, and that was enough. Since then, things have been quiet. I changed my number, blocked her on everything, let her live whatever fantasy she was chasing without dragging me behind her anymore. It's strange how healing doesn't feel like a thunderstorm. It's not loud or cinematic. It's slow. It's quiet. It's buying groceries for one and not feeling lonely. It's walking without waiting for your phone to vibrate. It's learning to like silence again. And I'm still learning. But I know this now. Sometimes the best revenge is leaving a story you don't belong in anymore.